All right. So you've been calling for new safety regulations when it comes to rail. Can you talk to me about what are the regulations you would like to see or enacted?
Yeah, there's a set of things that we need to do in order to make sure that there's more accountability and safety for freight rail. That includes things that we're doing as a department, things we need Congress to work with us on, and things that the rail industry could do right now. And I'm calling on them to do that. For example, there's a new, stronger type of tank car, which is better able to resist spills when there is an incident. A couple of administrations ago, there was a rule to get all of those new tank cars out by 2025. That got watered down by Congress, and now the end date is 2029. I think we should bring that date back up, and I think the railroads should go ahead and push that to happen without waiting on us to force them. I'm also looking to Congress to strengthen our hand when it comes to our ability to enforce safety regulations and hold companies accountable. And I'll give you an example here. When there is an egregious safety violation, the kind that results in someone losing their life, the maximum fine that our department is allowed to seek is in the neighborhood of $250,000. For multi-billion-dollar railroad companies, that's just not enough to be a deterrent. Look, the railroad industry is very powerful in Washington. They have successfully stopped or watered down a number of safety regulations. We have a chance right now, I think, with everybody paying attention to this issue, to make a positive difference and change the momentum when it comes to this. And I think one of the ways that America can do right by the people of East Palestine and people everywhere in the country who live near rail lines is to make sure that we're moving forward, not backward, on accountability and safety for freight rail companies.
Do you believe the situation in East Palestine could have been preventable?
Well, that is being reviewed by the National Transportation Safety Board. The NTSB is independent from my department for very good reason. And so we're going to wait for them to have their investigations before we say anything about root causes. But I don't think we have to wait in order to take these steps that we know are the right thing to do on rail safety. I'll give you a couple other examples. We were accelerating our work in my department on a standard for how many people have to be on board a train. Believe it or not, the rail industry has been pushing to have as few as just one person on a train that could be a mile long. Think about what happens if there's a problem 3/4 of the way toward the back of the train and there's only one engineer on board. So that's something that we have been working on. The last administration froze that regulation. We have been pushing since we got here to get that out the door, and we're working through the legal process to get that finalized right now. There is more that we can do, and even as we learn in time from NTSB some of the details on the root causes here, we know that these steps will make our country safer. And especially for those folks in Congress who've been quick to speak out about the issue now, who in the past sided with the rail industry, now is a chance to see if they're willing to work with us on a bipartisan basis to get something real done.
Is there anything your department can do in the immediate to sort of prevent this from happening in other communities across the country?
Well, one thing we're doing is a stepped up inspection program for routes where certain kinds of hazardous trains travel, because I think that's a chance to send a message about the rigor that we expect and the safety standards that we expect. But we're also calling on railroads to take certain steps without us making them. Don't get me wrong, we're going to keep pushing on the regulation side, but they could act tomorrow, for example, to join a program we have where employees who experience a close call can report that safety information without fear of reprisal from their employer. That's something that the railroads could do today, and they should.
Do you plan to visit the crash site? I know a lot of lawmakers have been calling for you to pay a visit to East Palestine.
I do. And in the early days, the focus, of course, was NTSB's independent safety investigation, and I respect their independence. But when I visit, I want to make sure that we're ready to have that conversation about the action that we're calling for today. And looking forward to that visit so that we can focus on anything and everything that we can do to support the people of East Palestine.
And what's your message to people who are concerned that the department was late to speak out on this issue? They're saying that transportation and EPA was late to the game and speaking out and responding to the situation in East Palestine.
Well, to be clear, our department was on the ground within hours, helping with the response and the investigation. Again, I respect the separate role of NTSB, but we have been on the ground literally from day one to make sure that we're doing our part to support. I do think that it's important to speak out about that, and I could have spoken out sooner, and I'm making sure that we are focused on the actions that are going to make a difference.
And you mentioned working with Congress to strengthen those safety regulations. Is there any particular members you've been speaking with?
Well, I will sit down with anybody, Democrat, Republican, or independent, who cares about this. And I've noticed a lot of folks have written in. Some of the same people who are writing now, like Senator Rubio of Florida, in the past wrote us asking to soften our stance on railroad regulation. So if there's a change of heart with these senators and members, this is a great moment for us to come to the table and get something done.
And as we wrap up, I know you said that NTSB is separate from your department, rightfully so, but is there any, you mentioned penalties, the penalties not being high enough. Is there any penalties that your department is looking at when it comes to imposing it on the train company?
If the investigation surfaces any case of a violation, then we will absolutely hold Norfolk Southern accountable to the fullest extent of the law. And I know this administration on the EPA side is doing the same thing with regard to their cleanup responsibilities. Look, we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar corporation, one that has really sought many times to weaken safety rules and has cut employees again and again and again, including people who work in safety and maintenance. They need to be held accountable, but we also need policies that strengthen our hand, holding them and all railroad companies accountable for what they need to do to keep our railroads safe.
Anything else you'd like to add that you think is important to mention for the story and for the people out there?
I think this needs to be a turning point. Look, we've been working on accountability and safety from day one in this administration, but I think the territory has shifted now, and there might be a new chance for greater bipartisan work in this area. I think that's the right thing to do for the country, and I certainly think it's one of the ways that we can honor the people of East Palestine who have been through so much through no fault of their own.